I wasn't supposed to check my phone that early. Mornings were usually quiet: coffee, 2 slices of toast, and a half-hearted scroll through messages I'd never answer. But that morning there it was. I miss you. No name. Just those 3 words from an unknown number. For a second, I thought it was spam. Then I noticed the typing bubbles, then they stopped. And somehow, that small, blinking silence felt heavier than any message. I didn't reply. Not right away. Instead, I went to the café down the street, the one where she worked. She wasn't supposed to stand out, either. Not in a place that smelled of burnt espresso and tired mornings. But she did, not because she tried, but because she didn't. A simple bun, loose strands at her neck, sleeves rolled up just enough to show a silver watch that caught the light. She saw me the second I stepped in. "You're early today," she said with that calm voice, the kind that doesn't rush. "Couldn't sleep." I tried to sound casual. It came out rougher than I meant. Her mouth curved, not quite a smile, more like she'd seen that answer before. "Same order?" "Yeah. Unless you're changing it." She shook her head. "You don't seem like someone who likes surprises." She was right. I wasn't. But lately, I'd started wishing for them anyway. As she made the coffee, I found myself watching her hands. How steady they were, how deliberate. She wiped the counter even when it was already clean. When she slid my cup across, our fingers brushed for half a second too long. She looked away first. I sat by the window, pretending to read, though the words on my phone still pulsed in my head. "I miss you," I typed. "Who is this?" Then deleted it. Maybe whoever sent it didn't mean to. Or maybe they did, just to the wrong person. She walked over later with a napkin, though I hadn't asked for one. "For the coffee ring," she said. "Thanks," I murmured, folding it into a small square, again and again, until it was soft at the edges. Her eyes followed the motion, then drifted to my phone. "Bad news?" I hesitated. "Wrong number." She smiled faintly. "Those are usually the most interesting ones." There was a quiet between us, not awkward, just full. Like the kind of silence that understands something before words catch up. I wanted to ask her something, anything, to keep her there. But the moments slipped, as they always do. She moved back behind the counter, and I sat there staring at my reflection in the glass. Outside, a couple walked by holding hands. I watched their shadows pass, then looked back down at my phone. A new message. From the same number. "Wait, is this not Daniel?" My stomach tightened. I typed back before I could think. "No. You've got the wrong person." 3 dots appeared. Then vanished. Across the café, she was locking eyes with me again, her brows slightly furrowed, like she'd seen something on my face change. The phone buzzed once more. "Sorry. I thought I was texting someone I shouldn't miss." I didn't reply. Not yet. Because the moment I looked up, she was already walking toward me, hesitant, holding her phone, and somehow, I knew the next words out of her mouth would make this morning anything but ordinary. She stood beside my table, her phone in her hand, screen lit. "I think," she said quietly, "I might have texted you by mistake." The hum of the coffee machine filled the silence that followed. I tried to laugh, but it came out thin. "I miss you, right?" Her eyes widened, not with shock, but with a kind of weary acceptance. "You got that?" "Yeah." She exhaled, a half-sigh that sounded more like resignation than embarrassment. "I was trying to reach someone I shouldn't." I nodded. "Didn't ask who?" The air between us was already fragile, like glass under fingertips. "I guess it's better it went to a stranger," she added. "I'm not sure I'm a stranger anymore," I said before I could stop myself. She blinked, and something flickered in her eyes, recognition, maybe, or caution. She looked older then, not in years but in weight. The kind that doesn't show until someone looks too closely. We stood there, the two of us pretending not to notice how close we were. Her perfume was faint, clean, like linen and something faintly floral. I could have stepped back, but I didn't. She glanced toward the counter. You want a refill? Only if you'll sit down for one. She hesitated, just long enough to make me think she'd say no, then grabbed 2 mugs and poured tea instead of coffee. I've had enough caffeine, she said softly. We sat by the window. Rain had started, small at first, tapping the glass. She cradled her cup with both hands. You remind me of someone, she said finally. My son's friend. He used to come by after school, always quiet, always asking questions I didn't have answers to. I tried not to flinch. There it was, the forbidden line, drawn without drawing it. He moved away? I asked. She nodded. Years ago. Funny how people leave quietly. You only realize it when there's no mug left in the sink. Her words stayed in the air long after she said them. I watched the way she avoided eye contact, the way her thumb brushed the edge of the mug again and again. I don't usually talk this much, she said. I'm glad you did. She looked at me then, really looked, and something softened in her face, like she'd been holding her breath too long. I should get back, she murmured, but she didn't move right away. I reached for my coat, and in the motion, my hand brushed hers. Just a small, accidental thing, skin against skin, but it felt like the kind of moment that shouldn't mean anything and somehow did. She didn't pull away. Just smiled faintly. You're too young to understand all this. Maybe, I said. Or maybe I just listen better than most. Her eyes lingered a second longer before she turned. The rain outside blurred everything into soft outlines. I don't know why that moment stayed with me. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. The rain hadn't stopped for 2 days. I found myself at the café again, not because I needed coffee, but because routine is easier to explain than wanting to see someone. She was there, tying her apron. Her hair was damp, like she'd walked through the drizzle without caring much. When she saw me, her mouth curved, a quiet, careful smile. You're back, she said. Guess I like the rain. She nodded, but her eyes lingered longer than they should have. There was something unreadable in them, something like waiting or regret. We talked less that day. Just small things, the leaky window, the smell of wet pavement, the way people rush through storms like it'll save them. But beneath it all, something had changed. Every silence felt heavier. At one point, her hand brushed mine as she passed the sugar. I think we both stopped breathing for a second. Then someone cleared their throat. A man, middle-aged, with familiar eyes, stood by the counter. He smiled at her, a little too comfortably. Didn't expect to find you working on your day off. She straightened. Just helping out, she said. Rain messed with the schedule. He nodded, then glanced at me. Regular customer? Yeah, I said. Just coffee. He laughed softly. That's how it starts. Something in her posture changed, stiff, defensive. We should catch up later, she said quickly, ushering him toward the door. When he left, she didn't come back to my table right away. She wiped down counters that didn't need wiping, stacked cups twice. I stayed, pretending to read. Pretending I didn't notice her avoiding my gaze. Finally, she came over. That was my ex-husband, she said quietly. He drops by sometimes. I nodded. He seemed comfortable. She looked out the window, the rain streaking down like moving glass. Old habits. Hard to unlearn. I wanted to say something, that I understood, that I wasn't judging, but the words felt too small for the space between us. She sat across from me, finally. You're quiet today. Just thinking. About what? Whether this, I gestured vaguely between us, means anything. Or if I'm just reading into things. She didn't answer. Just watched me, her expression soft but unreadable. Then she reached over, almost instinctively, and fixed the collar of my jacket. Her fingers brushed my neck, a light, unthinking touch. It lasted a heartbeat too long. When she realized it, her hand froze. She pulled back, flustered. You should go before it gets worse out there, she said, voice low. I stood, unsure if I should say goodbye or stay. Our eyes met, the kind of look that says everything words ruin. For a second, I thought she'd step closer. Thought I would too. But she just whispered, "Don't make this harder than it already is." And that was the closest we ever came to a confession. It had been 3 weeks since the rain. 3 weeks since that almost touch, that half-breath between us. I told myself I'd stop going to the café because I was busy. But really, I was avoiding what I couldn't name. Still, one evening, I found myself there again. She was outside this time, sitting on the bench near the alley, apron folded beside her, a paper cup in her hands. The light from inside cut across her face, soft and uneven. She didn't look surprised to see me. "Thought you'd quit this place," she said. I tried. She smiled faintly, eyes on the steam rising from her cup. "You always come back when you shouldn't." I could say the same. The street was quiet, only the hum of a passing bus, the faint smell of rain on concrete. I sat down beside her. Close enough that our shoulders almost brushed. Neither of us spoke for a while. Just the sound of her stirring the tea she wasn't drinking. Finally she said, "My ex stopped by again yesterday." "Oh?" He asked if I was seeing someone. She laughed, a small, nervous sound. I said no. I wasn't lying. But it felt like I was. That silence again. Too full, too careful. I looked at her then. Really looked, the small lines near her mouth, the way her fingers tightened around the cup like it was holding her together. "Do you ever wish?" I started, then stopped. "Never mind." "What?" "That you'd met someone at the wrong time, and it ruined all the right moments after." She turned toward me, eyes sharp, searching. "You shouldn't say things like that." "I didn't mean." "Yes, you did." The streetlight flickered. She stared straight ahead. "You think I don't feel it too? The waiting, the wondering? But I can't go through that kind of fire again." Her voice cracked slightly, not enough to sound weak, just human. I wanted to reach for her hand. I didn't. My fingers twitched against my knee. "You think I'm naive," I said quietly. "No," she whispered. "I think you're still soft enough to believe connection doesn't cost anything." I breathed out, almost a laugh. "And you?" She hesitated. "I'm old enough to know it always does." We sat there, two people tethered by something neither of us had asked for. The cafe door opened behind us. The sound broke whatever spell had held. She stood, brushing invisible dust from her jeans. "You should go before people start talking," she said. I looked up at her, the street light catching in her hair. "Do you care if they do?" She froze, just for a second. Her lips parted, then closed again. Her eyes met mine, a mix of longing, guilt, and something dangerously close to surrender. The question hung between us, unanswered, trembling like the last thread of restraint. She stopped showing up. At first, I thought it was the schedule again. Her shifts always changed when the manager rotated the roster. But by the third day, the new girl at the counter said, "She quit last week." Just like that. No goodbye. No explanation. I stood there, coffee cooling in my hand, pretending to check my phone so the silence wouldn't notice me. For a week, I tried to move on. Told myself she'd gone back to her ex, or maybe decided to start over somewhere quieter. Some mornings I even believed it. But then I'd see something, a paper cup with a lipstick stain, a silver watch on someone's wrist, and my chest would tighten like memory was muscle. Then one night I saw her. Outside the bookstore across the street. She was holding a stack of books against her chest, talking to a young woman, early 20s, with her same eyes. Her daughter, maybe? The resemblance was too sharp to miss. They laughed at something, the kind of laughter that comes from history, not humor. When she noticed me across the road, she froze for half a second, not shocked, just tired. Like she'd been expecting this. I lifted a hand. She didn't wave back. Just gave a small, apologetic smile before turning away. That should have been enough of an answer. Later that night, I drafted a message. "You didn't owe me an explanation," But I wish you'd said goodbye. I deleted it. Wrote another. I saw you tonight. You looked happy. I'm glad. Deleted that too. Every word felt like a door I wasn't allowed to knock on. Days passed. The city moved on. Buses came and went. The cafe replaced her with someone younger, someone forgettable. But I kept catching ghosts of her everywhere. The rain started again one morning. I found myself on that same bench outside the cafe, the one where we'd sat, where silence used to mean something. I half hoped she'd appear, maybe to return the same unspoken question I'd left her with. But the door stayed shut. The seat beside me stayed empty. I scrolled through my phone out of habit, and stopped when I reached her number, the one that had started all this. The one that had once said, "I miss you." I hovered over the message bar, thumb ready, heart too loud. Then I locked the screen. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused. Like life forgot to finish the sentence. And maybe that was its own kind of answer. It was nearly winter when I saw her again. The air had that brittle quiet, the kind that makes sound feel heavy. She was standing outside the grocery store, holding a paper bag close to her chest. I almost didn't go over. Almost. But then she looked up, and whatever I'd been pretending to move past, just stopped pretending. "Hey," I said. Her breath clouded in the cold. "You still around here? Couldn't find a better coffee." That made her laugh, small, genuine. The kind that found its way under my ribs. We ended up walking together. Down the narrow street lined with bare trees and soft streetlights that hummed like old memories. Neither of us said where we were going. It didn't matter. After a while, she said, "You shouldn't have to see me like this." "Like what?" "Someone who disappears when things get too close." I shoved my hands into my pockets. "I thought I scared you off." "You didn't." She paused. "I scared myself." We stopped near the bench, our bench. The one that had held too many almosts. She sat first. Set the paper bag down carefully, like even that needed patience. "I kept thinking about what you said," she murmured. "About meeting someone at the wrong time." I sat beside her, close but not touching. "And?" She looked down at her hands, bare now, no ring. "You were right. I just didn't want to admit it." The wind caught her hair, pushed it across her face. Without thinking, I reached out, tucked one strand behind her ear. She didn't pull away. "I kept waiting for the right version of me," she said. "The one who wasn't afraid to want something that wouldn't make sense to anyone else." Her voice trembled a little, not from cold. "But that version never showed up." I swallowed. "You don't have to be someone else." She smiled, sad, knowing. "Neither do you." For a long moment, there was nothing but breath. The world felt like it was holding still for us, waiting to see what we'd do. I wanted to tell her everything, that I still looked for her face in every crowd, that her absence had been louder than her presence ever was. But the words felt like too much for the air between us. So I said quietly, "I don't know if this makes sense anymore." "It doesn't," she said. "But it feels real." We both laughed then, soft, tired laughter. The kind that sounded like forgiveness. When she stood to go, she touched my shoulder. Just once. Barely there. "Take care of yourself," she said. "You too." She nodded, eyes wet, but smiling. That was it. No promises. No grand ending. Just two people who finally stopped pretending not to care. Sometimes that's enough. Sometimes that's everything. It's been a year since that winter evening. The cafe changed owners again. New paint, new cups, same smell of burned espresso. I still go there, sometimes out of habit, sometimes out of hope. She came back in spring. Not as a barista, just as someone ordering tea. 8:47 a.m., the same time I used to show up when everything was quietly breaking. When I saw her at the counter that morning, I didn't say anything at first. Just watched her stir sugar into her cup, still 2 spoons, still the small, circular motion she never noticed she did. She saw me eventually. That same small, tired smile, but softer this time. Still here, she said. Couldn't find better coffee, I said again. We both laughed. The same line, but it didn't feel like repetition anymore. It felt like a bridge. We sat outside, at the old bench by the window. The one that had seen every version of us, the almost, the silences, the confessions that never quite fit into words. This time, we didn't fill the air with things we'd already said. We just watched the city move, people late for work, a kid dropping his backpack, the bus that always came at 9:02. She said she was teaching again, part-time. Keeps me steady, she said. I told her I'd started writing. Small stories, mostly. About mischances. Wrong numbers. Things that almost made sense. She laughed at that. Figures, she said. Then she reached into her bag, pulled out a small thermos, silver, dented. Tea, she said. Thought you might have switched to something lighter by now. Maybe someday. But I took a sip anyway. It was still too hot. Still hers. There was a quiet moment after that, not tense, not expectant. Just still. I used to think love was supposed to change everything, she said. Now I think maybe it just softens the edges. I nodded. You made the noise stop. That's enough. She didn't look at me when she smiled. Just watched the morning light spill over the street, warm and ordinary. We didn't talk about the past. Didn't need to. The distance had done its work, sanded us down to something honest. When she stood to leave, she touched my arm, not out of impulse, but out of knowing. Same time tomorrow? She asked. I met her eyes. 8:47. She nodded once and walked away, the sound of her steps fading into the hum of the street. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel paused. I felt present. Sometimes love doesn't ask you to start over. It just asks you to stay. Did this story stay with you? What kind of quiet, real love stories do you want to hear next? Tell me in the comments, maybe your story becomes the next one.